The relay core was seconds from failure when a princess made the choice no system could undo. Warning lights faded across the damaged station. Medical readings dropped. The future of an empire balanced against the life of one human who had already lost control of everything he built. The cost was recorded forever in the same network meant to preserve power. Welcome to Galactic Contact. Now, let's begin the story of the decision that changed two civilizations. The evacuation map changed before anyone noticed the alarms. Elias Ward noticed. He stood above the Eastern Transit Ring, watching hundreds of delegates move through the diplomatic station, when the emergency routing display shifted one corridor away from the original evacuation plan. A small adjustment, the kind most people ignored. Elias did not. His wrist interface displayed the station's environmental data beside Helix Reach logistics feeds. Pressure stability remained within acceptable limits. Oxygen distribution showed no immediate danger. Thermal load increased by 3%. The official systems reported a controlled response. The Helix network reported something else, a correction that had never been requested. Who changed the evacuation route? His assistant answered through the encrypted channel. We're checking. Check the authorization chain. A brief pause. Mr. Ward, security wants you away from the public floor. That wasn't my question. Another pause. Then the answer came. The change came through an approved Ethrin security channel. Elias looked down at the transit ring. The evacuation continued. That bothered him more than a visible failure would have. Nothing looked wrong. He opened the routing history. The modification had been inserted between two legitimate commands. The signature was valid. The timing was precise. Someone had not broken the system. Someone had used it. Elias opened a private archive and created a duplicate copy of the routing data. Store this under independent review. His assistant hesitated. That will remove normal executive access. I know. Why? Elias watched a maintenance worker guide several confused delegates towards safety. A child-sized emergency mask swung from the worker's shoulder with every step. Because if someone can reach my access, they can reach everyone connected to it. The answer was simple. The consequences were not. The station lights dimmed for less than a second. Then the eastern ring shook. A low vibration moved through the structure. Dust fell from a damaged ceiling panel and drifted through the artificial gravity field before ventilation redirected it. On Elias's augmented display, electromagnetic interference spread across the affected section. A contamination warning appeared. Unknown biological signature. A second alert followed. Security clearance recognized. Elias stopped. The attack had not started with a weapon. It had started with permission. A security drone moved above the observation deck. Its sensor array tracked the data package hidden inside Elias's jacket. A security officer approached. Mr. Ward, step away from the device. The officer's visor showed elevated stress levels. His weapon remained lowered. Uncertain, not convinced. Elias placed the data package on the floor. The officer relaxed slightly. Then the station lost power. The impact came from the eastern ring. The floor dropped beneath Elias as emergency restraints failed to activate. The glass barrier cracked outward, reflecting the red glow of backup systems. A sharp chemical smell filled the air as damaged electronics released heated vapor. People shouted. Elias moved toward the nearest fallen delegate before checking his own injuries. His shoulder struck the floor hard. Pain followed. He ignored it. The station's automated systems began sealing damaged sections. Doors closed. Safe routes disappeared from the navigation display. The data package slid across the floor toward the evacuation corridor. A figure moved through the smoke and falling debris. Not away from the danger. Toward it. Sailor Vare reached the fallen delegates before the emergency barriers completed their sequence. The station had become unfamiliar. Ethrin structures were designed to preserve order. Now, the same systems were fighting to contain damage they could not fully understand. Her sensory interface tracked pressure changes, electromagnetic distortion, and irregular movements in the station's support systems. The evacuation routes were shrinking. The safe zones were changing, and the human data package remained near the corridor entrance. So did Elias Ward. She recognized him from diplomatic records. Founder of Helix Reach, human industrial leader, a political variable, now simply injured. An emergency drone hovered above him. Biological hazard detected. Sayla looked at the readings. The system was correct. but incomplete. The human was losing vital stability. She moved closer. A security officer raised a hand. Princess, medical personnel are on the way. Sayla looked toward the damaged section behind him. The route was blocked. They won't reach him in time. That area is restricted. So is his survival window. The officer hesitated. Not because he agreed. Because the calculation was difficult. Sayla removed the outer layer of her ceremonial gloves. The officer noticed immediately. Your Highness, the continuity lattice is not authorized for external intervention. Sayla looked at Elias. His medical readings continued to decline. The choice had narrowed. The royal continuity lattice was created to preserve Ethrin succession continuity and approved biological synchronization. It was not a universal medical system. It was never designed for a human nervous system. That was exactly why using it carried risk. Sayla connected. The response was immediate. The lattice recognized her identity. Then it encountered an unfamiliar biological pattern. Warning: external compatibility uncertain. The medical interface displayed multiple pathways. None were guaranteed. The system could stabilize him. It could not promise recovery. Sayla adjusted the connection manually. The station sensors recorded every change. Emergency medical demand increased. Support systems recalculated available resources. The lattice maintained the biological bridge between two incompatible organisms, while automated systems compensated for the additional strain. A warning appeared on her personal display. Continuity variance detected. Sayla saw it. The record was already being created. A future review would not only ask whether she saved him. It would ask whether she had the right to. The station shook again. A damaged conduit released freezing vapor along the corridor wall. Condensation spread across emergency panels as the temperature dropped. The security officer shielded his face while maintaining communication with Central Command. Princess, disconnect. Sayla kept her hand against the interface. If I disconnect, he dies. That is not your decision to make. She looked at the officer. No, her voice remained steady. It is. The argument ended there. Not because of rank. Because the situation had removed every easier option. The lattice continued synchronization. Elias's vital signs stabilized. The emergency system confirmed improved survival probability. Then another message appeared. Royal continuity status. Review required. Sayla read the notification. Her access rights had not been removed. Her future had not been decided. But the first mark against it now existed. She released the connection only after the medical system confirmed stability. The light beneath her skin faded slowly. Not gone. Changed. A record remained. Elias Ward opened his eyes for only a moment. His vision focused on the person standing beside him. A princess. A stranger. The reason he was still alive. Then the station alarms returned. And somewhere beyond the damaged walls, the consequences of her choice began moving toward them. The first thing Elias noticed after waking was the missing access. Not the pain. Not the unfamiliar ceiling above him. The access. His wrist interface connected to the medical system, the station network, and nothing else. No Helix command layers. No logistics authority. No emergency routing privileges. The message remained unchanged. Temporary restriction applied. Elias stared at it. Temporary restrictions were usually designed for people who might make dangerous decisions. He had built systems around preventing dangerous decisions from affecting others. Now the system he built was preventing him. A medical unit adjusted the support field around his chest. The device tracked his recovery and exchanged data with the Royal Continuity Lattice connection. The process kept his body stable. It also carried the same warning. External synchronization active. Limited compatibility. A door opened. Princess Sayla Vare entered without the formal escort he expected. That was unusual. A royal successor without visible protection was either making a statement or avoiding one. Elias looked at the mark beneath her collar. The connection is still active. Yes. You're still paying the cost. Sayla looked at the medical display. The system is maintaining the bridge until your body no longer requires support. Your system? Yes. And your council knows? Yes. No hesitation. That answer told him more than an explanation would have. Elias attempted to access the Helix network again. The system denied him. You locked me out. Sayla studied the interface. I did not. Someone did. Yes. Who? The same people deciding whether my actions were acceptable. Elias looked toward the door. Security personnel stood outside the chamber. They were not guarding him like a prisoner. They were controlling movement. A subtle difference. One that could become meaningless quickly. Sayla placed a sealed container on the table. The data package survived. Elias looked at it. You opened it? No, why? Because I do not know whether the evidence is safer with me. That answer caught his attention. A person with authority admitting uncertainty was uncommon. What do you know? Sayla activated a small projection. The recovered data appeared between them. Helix routing records. Ethrin authorization pathways. Emergency response modifications. All connected. All legitimate. Elias frowned. That's impossible. It is consistent with the verification results. That's the problem. Sayla looked at him. Explain. He enlarged one section. The commands are real. Yes. The permissions are real. Yes. Which means whoever changed the system didn't break anything. A pause. They used the system correctly. The conclusion settled between them. The attack was not a failure of security. It was a success performed by someone with valid access. Sayla watched the data. Can Helix identify them? Not yet. Why? Elias looked at the restrictions on his interface. Because Helix was designed to prevent a single person from controlling everything. And now I'm one of the people it is protecting against. The statement was factual, but Sayla noticed the difference. For the first time since waking, Elias was not searching for a way around the system. He was examining why it existed. A warning appeared on the chamber display. Investigation Control Protocol enabled. Access requests began disappearing. The council was narrowing the information flow. Sayla watched the permissions change. They are containing the investigation. They are containing the risk. You believe that? Elias looked at her. I believe they believe it. The answer mirrored her own uncertainty. Neither of them trusted the system. Neither of them could simply abandon it. The medical interface updated. The lattice connection required continued monitoring. The evidence required protection. The investigation required independence. 3 problems. 1 limited set of resources. Sayla picked up the sealed container. We need verification outside this facility. Elias looked at her. That means transferring evidence beyond Ethrin authority. Yes. And you could lose control of the investigation. Yes. He studied her carefully. A few hours earlier, she had been a symbol of a government he did not understand. Now she was considering a decision that could damage her position. Not for him. For the evidence. Why help me? Sayla looked at the sealed container. Because the answer cannot depend on who has the most authority. It was not a promise. It was a decision. The chamber door remained locked. The investigation remained controlled. But the direction had changed. For the first time since the attack, they were no longer trying to survive inside someone else's system. They were preparing to test whether the system deserved their trust. The independent transfer request was denied 3 times before anyone admitted it had been denied. The authentication chamber remained silent while the system processed the same response. Request outside authority limits. Elias watched the message appear again. They're not refusing because the evidence is invalid. Sayla stood beside the verification column. No, they're refusing because the evidence leaves their control. She did not answer. That was answer enough. The chamber was built for certainty. Every surface recorded access. Every action carried a trace. Ethrin architecture reflected a belief that continuity created stability. A record existed for everything. The difficult part was deciding what the record meant. The recovered data package entered the verification system. 3 independent scans completed. Origin confirmed. Integrity confirmed. Encryption history confirmed. The results were exactly what they expected. That made Elias uncomfortable. Run it again. The analyst operating the chamber looked toward Sayla. Your Highness. Run it. The second scan produced the same result. The third did too. The system was not finding a flaw. It was confirming the absence of one. Elias approached the display. His medical monitor adjusted his movement recommendation. He ignored it and studied the authorization pathways. The commands that altered Helix routing were legitimate. The access signatures were legitimate. The emergency permissions were legitimate. Sayla observed the data through her own interface. Then someone inside the system approved the changes. Elias shook his head slightly. That assumption is why we are stuck. She looked at him. Explain. He expanded the command chain. Everyone is asking who broke security. The pathway highlighted. The better question is who used security correctly. The analyst frowned. That would mean the system worked. Yes. Then why are we investigating it? Elias looked at the analyst. Because a system can work exactly as designed and still produce the wrong outcome. The chamber remained quiet. The statement did not solve the problem. It changed the problem. Selah activated the Royal Continuity Lattice comparison. The chamber recognized her. Data flowed. Ethrin verification standards combined with Helix records. The confidence indicators increased. The analysts watched the results. Authorization chain confirmed. A brief sense of relief moved through the room. Then Elias noticed something. Stop. The analyst froze. What? Show the assumption layer. The analyst hesitated. Selah looked at him. Show it. The display changed. A hidden layer appeared beneath the verification process. The system was not checking whether an authorized person had acted with legitimate intent. It was checking whether the action came from a recognized authority. The distinction had always existed. Nobody had designed the system to question it. The Royal Continuity Lattice had done exactly what it was built to do. Preserve continuity. Confirm origin. Protect legitimacy. It had never been designed to judge whether legitimacy itself had been manipulated. The chamber temperature remained unchanged. But the people inside it understood the shift. The technology they trusted had not been defeated. Their understanding of its purpose had been incomplete. Selah lowered her hand from the interface. The evidence is still valid. Yes, Elias said. But it does not prove what we need. No, the original plan had failed. The evidence could not simply be presented to the council and expected to resolve the crisis. They needed verification beyond the structures that created the problem. They needed witnesses who had no reason to protect the system. A message appeared. Royal Access Review initiated. Selah read it. The council had not removed her authority. They had begun questioning it. The difference mattered. It was a political warning, not a final judgment. Elias noticed the notification. They're moving against you. They're protecting the institution. You still believe that? Selah looked around the chamber. At the records. At the rules. At the systems designed to prevent disorder. I think they're afraid of losing control. It was the closest thing to an admission she had given. Elias looked at the evidence container. Then we transfer it. Outside, Ethrin. Yes. That will make me appear disloyal. That's already happening. Selah considered the statement. The choice was not between safety and danger. It was between different consequences. She authorized the transfer request. This time, the destination was not a government archive. It was an independent arbitration network. The chamber accepted the command. A small action, a large consequence. Her royal access status changed. Under review. The evidence left the room through 3 separate verification paths. One controlled by Ethrin. One controlled by Helix. One controlled by neither. Selah watched the final channel open. The system had been built to preserve trust. Now trust had to exist somewhere outside it. The arbitration network accepted the transfer. Then it rejected the conclusion. Elias read the report without speaking. The Helix records were authentic. The Ethrin authorization signatures were authentic. The emergency response modifications had happened exactly as recorded. The evidence had survived. The accusation had not. A technician enlarged the final analysis. Authorization origin remains valid. Elias looked at the line. Again, the technician hesitated. We already completed 4 verification cycles. Complete another. Selah watched him. Not with disagreement. With recognition. The same question had followed them from the beginning. They had searched for a damaged system. They had not considered that the system could be functioning exactly as designed. The 5th analysis produced the same result. No corrupted data. No forged credentials. No unauthorized access. Only legitimate actions. Elias leaned closer to the display. Show the verification criteria. The technician opened the parameters. Origin. Integrity. Continuity. Authorization. The list appeared. Selah studied it. Then she noticed what was missing. Intent. The technician looked confused. The network does not verify intent. Why? Because intent cannot be measured from authorization data. The answer was simple. That was what made it dangerous. The entire structure had been built around a reasonable assumption. A legitimate authority using a legitimate system was legitimate. The assumption had never been tested against someone who understood the rules better than the people enforcing them. The attack had not bypassed the system. It had moved through it. Elias closed the report. The solution they trusted was gone. Not destroyed. Invalid. A warning appeared across the relay interface. Royal access confirmation requested. Sayla looked at the message. The council wanted her credentials, not the evidence. Her authority. A person could be reviewed faster than a system could be questioned. She did not respond immediately. Elias noticed. What happens if you give it to them? They regain direct oversight. And if you refuse? My position becomes more difficult. The answer came without hesitation. Both choices carried consequences. The station continued operating around them. The independent relay consumed additional processing capacity with every verification request. Cooling systems adjusted between sections, reducing comfort areas to preserve critical functions. The facility was no longer operating normally. It was preserving what remained. Elias looked at the arbitration report. The original strategy had depended on proving the system failed. Now the evidence showed something harder. The system could function correctly and still allow the wrong outcome. Sayla removed her authorization token from the interface. The council request remained unanswered. A security notification appeared. Royal compliance review escalated. Her political position weakened immediately. No guards entered. No accusation was issued. The change existed inside the records. That was enough. Elias watched the update. You lost access because of this. Sayla looked at the restricted permissions. Yes. The answer ended there. The cost was already visible. A new transfer request appeared. External arbitration. Independent observers. Civilian verification. The same evidence. A different path. Elias checked the destination. You're sending it outside every structure that can protect you. Sayla entered the final confirmation. Yes. The transfer began. The relay processed slower than before. But it moved. A message arrived from Helix trustees. Emergency governance restructuring completed. Executive access remains suspended. Elias read it once. Then again. The network he created had survived by removing his ability to control it. For years, he had designed Helix to resist failure caused by any single person, including himself. The design had worked. The results still hurt. Sayla noticed the message. She did not offer reassurance. Neither of them needed one. The arbitration network continued processing. The answer would take time. Time they no longer controlled. The first plan had failed. The second plan had a cost. But for the first time since the attack, the evidence was moving through a path neither power structure could close. The arbitration process continued. The station continued to lose functions. Neither event waited for the other. The command deck no longer displayed the full facility map. Sections that once showed live status now appeared as inactive zones. Cargo operations had stopped. Repair systems were limited to critical areas. The relay remained operational, but every minute consumed resources the station could not replace. Sayla stood beside the restricted command panel, reviewing the latest reports. The council had responded. Not with force, with procedure. A formal review of her actions. A temporary limitation on her authority. A request for clarification regarding the use of the royal continuity lattice. Every step followed Ethran law. That was what made it difficult. No one had broken a rule. They were using the rules. Elias entered the command area carrying his medical monitor. The device tracked his condition continuously. The synchronization with the lattice remained active, but the system now displayed a growing list of restrictions. Recovery was stable. Recovery was not complete. You should be resting. Sayla did not look away from the reports. So should you. That has never stopped either of us. A brief pause. Not agreement. Recognition. Elias checked the latest Helix update. The trustees had expanded their authority. Several emergency decisions were now being made without him. He had designed the system to function under extreme conditions. Extreme conditions had arrived. The design had succeeded. He had not. A message appeared on his interface. Operational authority removed. Temporary executive limitation. Elias stared at it. Sayla noticed. Your company. Yes. They removed you. They protected the network. The response came too quickly. She looked at him. Elias looked back at the notification. A correction followed. They protected the network by removing me from it. The distinction mattered. The old instinct would have been to regain control. Contact executives. Override restrictions. Use influence. None of those options existed anymore. Not legally. Not practically. Not without proving the exact concern he had built Helix to prevent. A single person becoming too important. The station lights shifted as another power distribution change occurred. The command deck lost several non-essential displays. The remaining screens adjusted brightness automatically to preserve energy. The relay temperature remained within limits. Barely. A technician approached. External verification requires additional source confirmation. Elias looked up. From where? Helix archival nodes. His expression changed. They need Helix. Yes. The company I no longer control. Yes. The situation had turned against the very architecture he had created. Decentralization had preserved the evidence. It had also slowed access. A system without a single point of failure did not move as quickly as a system controlled by one person. The technician continued. The trustees can authorize access. Elias looked at the request. They might refuse. Yes. No one needed to explain why. They had a responsibility to protect the network. They did not know whether Elias was asking as its founder or as a person trying to clear his name. That uncertainty was reasonable. It was also painful. Sayla opened the communication channel. I will request temporary cooperation. Elias looked at her. Your authority is restricted. I know. They may refuse you too. Yes. The answer did not come from confidence. It came from acceptance. The request was transmitted. Minutes passed. Then hours. The station became quieter as more systems entered conservation mode. The atmosphere regulators adjusted airflow patterns. The command area remained functional while surrounding sections slowly disappeared from the network. A physical reminder of limited resources. A message arrived. Helix trustees approved partial archival access. Partial, not full. Enough to continue. Not enough to remove all uncertainty. Elias read the authorization. They don't trust me. Sayla looked at the approval terms. They trust the process. He almost disagreed, then stopped, because that was exactly what he had built. A structure that did not require trust in one person, even when that person was him. The relay received the new data. Verification resumed. The result did not arrive immediately. Nothing had become easier. Sayla remained under review. Elias remained separated from his own network. The evidence remained incomplete. But the investigation had moved forward without either of them taking control of the system. And that was the one outcome neither of them would have chosen at the beginning. The final verification package reached 92% completion before the relay stopped. No alarm followed. No warning appeared. The system simply refused to continue. Elias watched the frozen progress marker. Why? The technician checked the diagnostics. Thermal limits. Can we reduce the load? We already reduced everything available. The answer appeared across the command deck. Half the station was operating in conservation mode. External communications were delayed. Non-critical systems had been disconnected. The relay had taken priority over every remaining function. There was nowhere left to move the cost. Sayla reviewed the resource allocation. The numbers were precise. The remaining processing capacity belonged to the relay. The remaining medical support belonged to Elias. The remaining environmental stability belonged to the crew. Every option removed something else. A warning appeared. Royal Continuity Synchronization, active. Elias looked at the status line. Your connection is still using shared support. Sayla did not deny it. Yes. How much? The technician answered. Enough to affect completion. Elias studied the power distribution map. The conclusion was immediate. The link keeping him alive was competing with the system proving the truth. Sayla stepped away from the display. The choice was visible. Months earlier, Elias had believed control prevented failure. Months earlier, Sayla had believed preserving the system prevented collapse. Both assumptions had brought them here. The station did not consider intentions. It followed limits. A security team arrived at the command area. The officer in charge looked at the relay status. Transfer control to Ethrin's supervision. Sayla turned. The verification process is independent. The station is under emergency conditions. The evidence cannot return to the authority currently being reviewed. The officer did not argue. His responsibility was also real. The conflict was not personal. Two systems were protecting different priorities. Elias looked at the approaching team. If they take control, the relay continues. Yes, Sayla said. And if they don't? She looked at the resource map. We lose time. The countdown continued. No option removed the cost. A technician approached. Princess, there is one available action. Elias looked over. The technician continued carefully. It is not a solution. A projection appeared. The royal continuity lattice connection remained active between Selah and Elias. It had stabilized his recovery since the attack, but it continued consuming shared medical support. The technician displayed the projected outcome. If the link remained active, verification might not finish before the override. If it disconnected, the consequences would be permanent. Continuity loss, irreversible risk. Elias stepped closer. No, the medical monitor on his wrist immediately issued a warning. He ignored it. This is not your decision alone. Selah looked at him. For the first time, the choice belonged to both of them. Elias continued. You saved my life. Yes. You don't owe the system another cost. Selah looked at the relay, the evidence, the timer, the warning. The decision had already moved beyond obligation. She returned to the interface. The system rejected her first command. Royal access limited. The council restriction remained. Her authority had not returned. She continued anyway. The lattice provided manual authentication. The interface accepted the request. A final warning appeared. Confirm irreversible continuity loss. Selah read it, then confirmed. The medical bridge disconnected from shared support. The station responded immediately. Power distribution shifted. Environmental controls reduced output in unused sections. Air circulation changed across the facility. The relay received the resources required to continue processing. Elias's recovery readings dropped. Emergency systems compensated. Enough. The lattice beneath Selah's skin changed pattern. Ethrin sensors recorded the alteration. The security commander watched the readings. His orders remained the same. His understanding changed. The relay restarted. 92%. 94. 97. The connection weakened. The cost became real. The relay reached completion. The final authorization chain transmitted. Independent observers received the complete package. The station remained damaged. Selah remained changed. Elias remained alive because of a system she had chosen to reduce. No celebration followed. Only the record. What had been spent? What had been preserved? And what could never return to the way it was before? The relay completed the final verification cycle. Then the security lock activated. Ethrin command authorization appeared across the control displays. Remote override request. Elias saw the message before anyone spoke. They're not destroying the relay. Selah looked at the incoming command. No, they're taking control of the result. The distinction mattered. The security teams had not failed. They were following their mandate. Their objective was not chaos. Their objective was preventing uncontrolled release of sensitive evidence. The problem was that the same authority structure was connected to the investigation. The relay continued processing. 98%. The override timer counted down. The station had reached its final limit. Cooling systems had already reduced output across non-critical areas. Structural stabilizers were operating below standard capacity. The command deck lights flickered as power management redirected resources toward the relay core. The technician checked the remaining options. There is no available buffer. Elias looked at the resource map. The statement was familiar. Every system had reached the same conclusion. There was no hidden reserve. No additional capability. No perfect solution waiting. Only allocation. Selah studied the connection between her lattice and Elias's recovery system. The link had saved him. It had also remained part of the station's resource demand. The technician displayed the projected outcome. If the connection remains active, the relay may not complete before the override. And if it disconnects? The technician paused, then displayed the result. Permanent continuity damage risk. Loss of full succession synchronization. Possible long-term biological complications. Elias stepped forward. Find another route. The technician looked at the system. We already removed everything non-essential. Remove more. There is nothing left. The words ended the search. The station was not refusing. The station was showing what the available resources allowed. Selah placed her hand near the interface. Elias noticed. No, she looked at him. The command deck waited. Security teams waited. The relay waited. I built systems to prevent one person from carrying everything, Elias said. Selah watched him. And now? He looked at the resource map. Now someone has to decide what cannot be saved. The sentence was not a request. It was an acceptance. Selah entered the manual control sequence. The system rejected the first command. Royal access limited. The council restriction remained active. Her title had not returned. Her authority had not returned. Only the consequences remained. She connected through the remaining biological authentication pathway. The lattice recognized her. Not the rank. The individual. Manual reallocation available. A warning appeared. Confirm irreversible continuity loss. Sayla read it. The record of her choice would exist permanently. No later explanation could erase it. No political recovery could restore what was lost. She confirmed. The medical bridge disconnected from shared support. The effect was immediate. Elias's recovery readings dropped. Emergency systems compensated. Not completely. Enough. The royal continuity lattice beneath Sayla's skin changed. The succession marker remained present, but incomplete. Ethrin's sensors recorded the event. The security commander saw the readings. His expression changed. Not because he suddenly agreed. Because he understood the cost. The princess had not bypassed the system. She had accepted what the system demanded. The relay temperature began falling. Processing resumed. 98%. 99. 100. The completed evidence package transmitted through the independent arbitration network before the override command reached the relay. The security system still functioned. The command still arrived. It was simply too late. The station entered emergency preservation mode. The immediate danger passed. The consequences did not. Elias remained alive. Sayla remained standing. Neither outcome was free. He looked at the medical readings. You knew? She disconnected from the interface. Yes. You knew it wouldn't come back. Yes. There was no argument afterward. The decision had already become part of the record. Across the network, independent observers began receiving the evidence. Across Ethrin space, the first official responses began forming. The conflict had not ended. The people inside the station had simply reached the point where the truth could no longer be contained. And the person who carried the future of an empire had paid for that future with part of her own. The hearings did not end when the evidence became public. They began. For weeks, the Ethrin Continuity Council reviewed the authorization records, security decisions, and emergency protocols that allowed the attack to happen without appearing illegal. The evidence was accepted. The consequences followed. Several officials resigned. Some were removed. Others remained and defended their decisions, arguing that the system had been used according to the rules that existed at the time. No single person carried the entire failure. That made the process slower. It also made it harder to ignore. Elias watched the final review from an observer position. Not as Helix's commander. Not as a political representative. His access remained limited. The trustees restored some permissions, but not all. They kept the restrictions because the original concern remained valid. A system designed to prevent concentrated power could not remove its own safeguards simply because the person affected had good intentions. Elias accepted the decision. It was not comfortable. That was different. Across the chamber, Sayla stood before the Continuity Council. Her actions had saved a human life and protected evidence that changed relations between civilizations. They had also damaged the succession marker that defined her future. The council did not erase that fact. Neither did she. The lattice remains functional, one council member said. Yes. But full continuity restoration is impossible. Yes. The room remained still. Not because the answer surprised them. Because everyone understood what it meant. Sayla was still part of Ethrin leadership. She was no longer the person they had expected her to become. Valor attended the hearing as a former regent. His influence had weakened. His arguments had not disappeared. He looked at the evidence summary. The system was created to protect stability. Sayla looked toward the same record. And now it must survive correction. The statement did not end the debate. It began another one. Some members supported reform. Others warned that change carried its own risks. No one declared a new era. No one solved centuries of political habit in a single decision. The first changes entered procedure. Independent verification became mandatory. Emergency authority gained additional review. External observers received greater access during interstellar disputes. Small changes. Difficult changes. The kind that survived because they became part of the system. Months later, Elias returned to Helix Reach headquarters. The building was familiar. The command structure was not. The executive interface that once connected directly to him had been redesigned. Decisions now passed through distributed review systems and regional operators. An executive approached with the latest operational report. Your previous approval path would have processed this in 3 minutes. Elias studied the new workflow. And now, 27. He looked at the report. A slower system. A more difficult system. A safer one. Keep it. The executive looked surprised. Elias turned toward the observation deck. Outside, human and Ethran vessels moved through the same traffic lanes. Not perfectly, not without disputes, but together. Sayla arrived later. No ceremony followed. No announcement. She stood beside the observation window and watched reconstruction crews repair damaged sections of the orbital network. Your company changed. Elias looked at the traffic routes. Yes. Because of what happened. Yes. A pause. You could have restored the old system. He looked at her. I could have. But you didn't. No, the answer was enough. The same was true for her. She could have spent years trying to prove that the decision at the relay had cost her nothing. Instead, she carried the record. The lattice beneath her skin remained incomplete. Every official system recognized the difference. So did she. The rescue that began the crisis was remembered differently across both civilizations. Some saw a human executive who survived because an alien princess broke tradition. Some saw a princess who endangered succession for an outsider. Others saw a failure that forced two civilizations to examine systems they had trusted too easily. None of those interpretations disappeared. That was the reality they inherited. Elias watched the vessels moving below. When this started, I thought the important part was proving who was responsible. Sayla watched the same horizon. And now, he looked at the rebuilt network. The evidence existed. The changes existed. The costs existed. The important part was making sure it could happen again less easily. Sayla looked toward the orbital lanes. The future was not guaranteed. It never had been. But beyond the station, ships continued moving. Human, Ethran, different, still connected. And that connection existed because, when every system demanded preservation, two people had chosen what they were willing to lose. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If saving one life meant sacrificing the future you were born to protect, would you make the same choice? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Galactic Contact for more cinematic stories from across the stars.